Welcome once again. I am Jim Wigan with Athearn Trains, and welcome to the last Train Tuesday of 2022. We're going to be talking about some HO scale, some N scale in the Athearn line. We're going to be talking about containers, and then following that, we're going to be talking about some Roundhouse gondolas, and then give you a heads up on what's available in stock at your hobby shop, just in case you maybe get some currency gifts there that you want to use in the hobby shop. So before we get into all that, let's go ahead and give our guests a shout out. If you're joining us live tonight on the live stream, thank you for joining us. If you are watching us later on the YouTube, thank you once again for joining us. So let's see who is here tonight in the live. We've got Mr. David Reynolds, both equipped with sweet and unsweetened tea. Boy, some good choices there, Mr. Reynolds. We've got Daylight Dave, DG Model Works is in the house, Delta 9, Jason, Glenn, Joel, Sid, BN Green 1970, Lewis, Bruce, Ibuprofen Dave, Tomas, Terry, Harold, Ronald, and Jay. Looks like we've got a pretty good crowd joining us tonight. I trust you guys out there. Had a great holiday season. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and you got everything that you wanted under your Christmas tree or your holiday gift baskets or your presents or whatever you ended up getting. Somebody out there probably got some cool Athearn stuff. And I know one of the things that I asked for Christmas, of course, I've been asking for it since day one. I never quite get, and that's more time. I didn't have time to work on my layout this weekend, but I hope you did. Now, before we get started, let's see who else is joining us here tonight. We've got KCG Rail Gilbert. We got Jamie, Michael, Ian, Delta 9, Abel, Anthony, Daniel, Joel, and Thomas. So once again, thank you for joining us here tonight on Train Tuesday, the last Train Tuesday of 2022. And like I said, we're going to start this show talking about some Athearn products. Now, we're going to start talking about both HO scale and N scale Athearn 53-foot containers. So, a little background on these. As you probably already know, containers can be used across different modes of transportation, primarily from ship to rail to truck. Pretty much a lot of things, a lot of commodities that come into the United States and Canada, they're going to arrive on a container by vessel. They come into a port, they're offloaded from that vessel into a yard, onto a truck, onto a flat car, or usually a well car. And then that goes from point A to point B. So in some cases, it might go from Long Beach, California, all the way to Chicago. Once it gets to a terminal like Chicago, it's then loaded up onto a semi-tractor trailer, and then it is taken to its final destination. A little bit different than what the railroads used to do some 50, 60 years ago, when locomotives would have a train that would go throughout a town, switching the industries along the way. Nowadays, trains are pretty much used from a point A to point B, with the local trucks kind of taking over the role of the local switcher. Now, the 53-foot containers are the largest currently in use in the United States and are used for carrying domestic shipments of mostly lightweight merchandise. One interesting thing to note, Canadian Tire up in Canada, they've got a 60-foot container. Now, will we see those in the future? Time will tell, but considering how much growth we've seen in just trailers in the last 30, 40 years, it's probably a safe bet we might be seeing those in the future. So I want to direct your attention to the model on the screen. This is a release that we did back in April of 2021. These are actually in stock now. This is the HO scale version of the 53-foot CIMC container. Now what I'll do is I'll zoom in so you can see the detail that we pack into these. Now I know a lot of guys are like, hey, why are these containers so expensive? They're just a simple plastic box, right? On the surface, they may look that way, but let's look at the details we've got here. That ribbing that you see here, not as easily molded as one might think. And then you've got the end doors that you see here. Check out the writing. Now that printing is not easy to do, and I'm also going to direct your attention to this decal that I'm sure all of us have seen in traffic. Truckers would call this the suicide angle of trucking. But that warning label that we see on 53-foot trailers and containers, that is there as well. Now, these are the HO scale versions. The last run we offered these came in a pack of 3. This time we're offering them in a pack of 6. Now, here's the N scale version of the same container. This is also from a April 2021 announcement. These are in stock at your dealer now. Same thing with the N scale. Most people would think that because in on here is actually more demanding and expensive to replicate in N scale than it is in HO. If you don't believe me, go grab some decals that are HO scale versus N scale and see the difference. Now, like I said, these CSX 53-foot containers, these are in stock at your hobby shop right now or your favorite online retailer. But I wanted to give you guys an idea of what these containers look like in case you haven't seen them before. Because what I'm going to show you next is just the artwork, preliminary artwork for the containers that you can pre-order before Friday, December 30th. So without further ado, let's go ahead and show what we're going to be running this time. So coming up first is the STG Logistics. Now again, in HO scale, these are going to come in a 6-pack. Also in the N scale, they're going to come in the 6-pack. Both HO and N scale are going to share the same artwork. So I'm just going to go through artwork once, knowing that these represent both the HO and the N scale releases. Now the retail on the HO scale is $89.99 for a 6-pack. Retail on the N scale is $79.99. That's also for a 6-pack. Here we've got STG Logistics. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with yellow freight. We're offering yellow as well. These are extremely common throughout the United States. Snyder. We're offering these in both HO and N scale. Now remember that all the containers, while they look alike, all of the container road numbers are different. There's no overlap there. Every single container is individually numbered. Now we started doing them in the 6-packs because we felt a lot of guys that were doing modern unit train intermodal wanted to just make it easier on themselves and buy a 6-pack versus just a 3-pack. So you're essentially doubling your fleet this way. Coming up next is the Excel here. And the COFC Logistics, kind of a neat looking container. And of course, EMP. You see these all over the United States and Canada. So very familiar road names that we're offering in this run. Again, they're all going to be available in 6-packs. They're in both HO and N scale. While we're at it, let's go over some of the features of the HO scale, and then we'll go into the N scale. So these are going to feature the newest horizontal rib front. They're going to be easily stackable. Separately applied door closure rods on the HO scale version. So they're not molded in there. If you looked at that picture I showed earlier, they're actually individual door closure rods. And then, of course, like I just mentioned, each container is individually numbered. Going on to the N scale version, these two are also going to have the newest horizontal rib front. Now, the N scale ones are kind of cool because they have a magnetic tendency to them, so they stack really easily. Let's face it, in N scale, they're rather small. That magnet just helps them stay together that much better. And of course, like HO, these are individually numbered. So before going on to our next segment, I wanted to kick it out there with you guys and see if you had any more questions. Harold is really happy with the Snyder. Can't say as I blame him. Let's see what else. Ronald says, wow, that's a lot of containers. Yeah, again, if you're building, especially you guys that are into Fremo, whether it be HO or N, I mean, you have the ability to make some really nice long stack trains. So why bother just getting a 3-pack when you can save a little bit of money and get the 6-pack? And that way you can get a lot of your intermodal done up quickly. All right, not too many questions on the containers. One question here. Any update on Walmart containers? Licensing. Okay, we have not had any success with that just yet. But rest assured, if there's a possibility that we can do that, we've also had guys ask for the Amazon containers. Again, it's all about licensing. If we can get the licensing behind us and we can still offer them at a fair price to you guys, we'll certainly look into it. But right now, we haven't really done much with that just because of the licensing. And for you truck guys that have been asking, we're spending a lot of time on licensing with the full-size truck manufacturers to see if we can get some more trucks into our catalog. All right, one more question here as I scroll down. Cornell, I mean, your comment made me laugh. If you know Mr. Bezos, and he said it's okay. Yeah. Let's see. Dylan wants to know, how are these going to be packaged? Very similar to our 3-packs. They're going to be what they call a blister pack card. So you're going to have a cardboard background with the 6 containers and a plastic blister over it. Because most guys with their containers, especially you guys that are into Fremo, you tend to do a little bit different packing and unpacking of your containers versus your standard box cars and tank cars and such. So these are not going to come in a box, to my knowledge. These are just going to be to the point where they're a blister pack like you currently see. Terry wants to know, how about why not magnetic and HO? The HO ones are just big enough, and the locking pins are physically big enough that they actually stay together really well. Whereas with N scale, those locking pins are so minute. They help, but not quite as much. So that's why the engineers went with the magnetic and N scale and not HO. Yeah, the HO ones lock in really nicely. All right, so moving on, we're going to move into the past a little bit. We're going to start talking about Roundhouse now. Now, Roundhouse, as you know, in the last year, we've kind of rebranded it. It's a little bit different line than what it was. It's more of the introductory or the younger modeler, but we also have some that will be of interest to you guys that model Steam. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. Now, everything that we're talking about so far, you have until this Friday, just a few more days, to get in your pre-orders. And you're going to want to get those in before Friday. So the Roundhouse 40-foot 4-bay offset hopper, something that's been in our catalog for a while, although it has been refined. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Now, open hopper cars, they've been used for commodities such as coal, which can suffer exposure with less detrimental effect. Hopper cars have been used by railways worldwide whenever automated cargo handling has been desired. Now, this type of car is distinguished from its gondola car in that it has opening doors on the underside or on the sides to discharge its cargo. The offset 4-bay hopper represented by this model here was an outgrowth of the earlier 2-bay designs and could discharge its load faster due to 4 doors. So if you take a real quick look here at the picture I'm using to illustrate, you've got these 4 discharge doors, and I'll zoom in on these. Now, obviously, a 2-bay would only have 2 of these on either side, and those doors would open up and its commodity would be released. In this case, the 4-bay. Now, this particular model here, this is the same model that we're talking about tonight. I wanted to give you an idea of what this model looks like. Now, remember, I said this has been in our lineup for a number of years. However, that doesn't mean we haven't done some work to the molds. That doesn't mean we haven't done some work around these. If you were to compare with this to, say, a standard blue box model of 30 years ago, they would be similar, but they would definitely not be alike. One of the things I want to show you guys is, yes, most of the details are molded on. They're molded on for a couple of reasons. One, it's a little bit more robust for younger hands. These come now with metal wheel sets. You know, the old blue box, they do with a thanks to McHenry. The biggest thing that you can take away from these is the printing on these has improved so much more than what they were when they were an old blue box kit. Nice and sharp, and I can say based on blue box kits from years ago, it's a Boston and Maine one, of course, and the printing on it is just not nearly as nice and as sharp as this example we have here. Now, we're also going to be doing something a little bit different with these too. We're going to be offering these in a multi-pack this time. Now, these are going to be offered in a 3-pack in the roads that we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes. First up is the Western Maryland. This is based on a 1959 paint scheme. So you guys that are into steam or transition era, these are perfect for you. Now, a 3-pack on these is going to be $101.99. Again, consult your dealer for the best price. We're telling you the actual retail prices, so your price may vary. Coming up next is a Missouri Pacific. This is based on a model from 1939, so right in the middle of the steam era. Right into the pre-war era of freight trains. And again, every single card that's in the 3-pack is a different number. No duplicates. Going far into the future, if you will, based on what we've been talking about so far, 1980s, the Peabody Coal Company. We have offered these in the past. They've done extremely well, so we wanted to offer these again. But yeah, 1980s, believe it or not. Denver Rio Grande has made another appearance. The Denver Rio Grande, this is a 1955 on up paint scheme. Going into the 1960s, we have the Lehigh Valley. And then last but not least, going back to 1955, Chesapeake and Ohio. So as you can see in this run, you've got a pretty good range of dates, mainly in the transition era. So if you're one of those modelers that likes to have the steam with the early diesel, a lot of these cars are going to work for you. If you guys that are pure steam enthusiasts, we've got a run for you. And even you guys that are modeling later into the 1980s, we've got a run of these for you. So go ahead and do a pre-order on these by Friday the 30th. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. These are perfect for you guys that are into module type clubs. If you're into Fremo, HO or N, well, not N, but Fremo, or some type of HO scale modular club, these are perfect for that because they transport really easily. They don't have a lot of small detail parts that are going to break off. They're also great for operations too. You don't always want that Genesis model on the layout when you have an open house and you've got a lot of people doing different tasks on your railroad layout. These are not susceptible to breakage as easily. So there you have it. These are available, like I said, in a 3-pack. $101.99 is the retail. Now, some of the features on these guys, even though they're Roundhouse, they do have some great features. Of course, the wheel brake is separately applied. That's a given. But like I was saying earlier, they have a 33-inch machined metal wheel set. They do have the RP25 contours on them. And depending on which set you purchase, they're going to have either the Bettendorf 50-ton Bettendorf or the 70-ton roller bearing trucks. Again, depending on which cars you choose, it's based on the prototype. All of them are going to have body-mounted McHenry operating scale couplers. They're all going to be weighted up to the NMRA standards. And really, believe it or not, these have highly detailed injection molded bodies. They've been refined over the years. Those molds are not completely the same molds that we've had for the last 40 years. They're based on those. But they've been updated, so the fidelity on these looks much better than the old blue box. So with that, I'm going to see if there's any questions on the Roundhouse models that we just talked about. And then I've got some exciting stuff to talk to you tonight about as far as what's in stock at your dealers. And I'm going to let you guys get back to on your layout. So let's go to what we've got going on. No, Glenn, no Canadian roads in this one for right now. Maybe next one. Sid asks me every month. He's like, man, is there any hints on next month's release? I don't know. You're just going to have to wait and slug it out. Let's see what else we have. Harold is pretty happy with the CNO release. Anthony wants to know, will the 53-foot containers ever get chassis? It's probably on the drawing board right now as we speak. Product development has been going at notch 8 for the last 2 years, not only updating current runs, but working on new projects too. So I'm sure that is definitely in their wheelhouse right now. You'll see by Friday some of the things that PD has been working on. JD's got a good question, and based on the crowd reaction, a lot of people want to know, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that. How does a company update a mold? Are there new molds based on the drawings? So with some of the older molds that we've had throughout the years, one of the things that happens with these molds is the more they're used, the more they get worn out. Some of the older molds that are made out of steel, they will hold up a little bit better than, say, some of the more modern ones that are made out of aluminum. But over time, those molds getting used and injected with hot plastic over the years, they start to wear out. So if you've ever had a model car kit when you were a kid, or maybe a plastic model airplane kit, and you have to cut the parts off the sprue, sometimes you'll notice some plastic kind of leaking around the part that you want to get out. That's because the mold is starting to degrade and it's allowing plastic to get outside of the mold. So many times what will happen is a company like Athearn will do some work on those molds. They'll clean those molds up. And while they're at it, they'll sharpen things. And what I mean by that is they'll sharpen the detail. There's tools that we can use that our tool cutters use, and they try to make things give it a sharper edge. Because again, as time goes on, those ribs, like you see on the side of the Roundhouse 4-bay gondolas, those get rounded with age. We want to get those sharpened up again. We can clean that up. Now, you can only do that with a mold so many times before it does come to the point where it's obsolete. There are some things in our catalog where we've actually had to rebuild the molds. Good case and point of that is our FMC boxcars we offered back in November. Those were updated to the point where we almost could have gotten away by saying they were a brand new model. But since they were based on the original molds, we went ahead and just said they had been updated. But that's a good question. Thank you for asking that, JD. I do appreciate that. That's a pretty good question. I'm going to grab that. Jim, we're always asking you for stuff we want to see, but what's something you want to see made? I want to see something made that you guys thoroughly enjoy. And that's a great point for me to put that out there and say, anytime you want to see a new model produced, or maybe a locomotive or freight car that we currently produce, but in a road name you'd like to see, please go over to the Athearn website, go to the Contact Us page, and go to Athearn Product Suggestions email and drop us a note. Let us know what you want to have. Now, just because you don't get a response doesn't mean we're not listening. We are taking all that information and we're keeping it. And you never know. Anywhere between the next month of announcements to a couple of years down the road where you might see your favorite model. As for me, well, there's so many things that I like. It's hard to say. I think it's time for another run of GP40-2s, though. I could use another one of those, maybe a CSX one, just to kind of, I don't know, do something a little bit different. I mean, after all, CSX did eventually buy my favorite railroad. Let's see what other questions. Ronald's coming at us with some good feedback. He says, your customer service is great. Just ask for a problem on an engine who lost a cab sunshade and how to fix it and get an answer within less than 2 hours. Thank you, Ronald. I appreciate that. And I'll definitely let our service guys know. You know, I say a lot of times that the Athearn team is largely made up of model railroaders. I could say the same thing about our service department. Those guys that are working on your locomotives, talking to you by email, they have years upon years of experience in model railroading. So they're enthusiasts just like you. So they want you to have as much fun as they do when they're off the clock with their model railroad stuff. All right. Good question from Patrick. Wants to say, hey, will we see the California Amtrak cars in N scale? There's a possibility. When we announced those, not this past July, but the previous July, had a lot of N scale guys saying, hey, what about us? What about us? Now, let's be honest, N scale, and I'm one of those guys. I'm an N scaler myself, but N scale only makes up a fraction of what HO does. So we have to look at, you know, all the things that make sure that we're making the right decision. Now, we have had a lot of feedback on that, so the possibility is high, but no guarantees at this point. But thanks for the question. Lucas, the kits have sailed for Athearn. Everything is ready to roll. Everything's ready to go. Now, fortunately for you, we live in an age where there are plenty of people out there that do make kits. A lot that are very similar to the old blue box, although albeit their fidelity is a lot better. So the kits aren't dead, but for Athearn, we've concentrated on everything from the Roundhouse all the way to the Genesis. It's pretty much ready to go. The only thing you need to do is program it, maybe weather it. In some cases, we do add some extra details for you to put onto your locomotives, but pretty much we have closed the chapter on kits. All right, so before I let you go, I wanted to share some things with you. Something just came in, and look what's in stock now. The 38-2s that you guys have been waiting for, well, they're finally available. They actually started shipping to dealers last week, just before Christmas. So if you've been waiting for one of these locomotives, the wait is finally over. That Grand Trunk looks amazing, especially the Operation Lifesaver one. This is a really cool locomotive. These are available now at your dealer. If you pre-ordered one of these, well, then you probably already got it already. But if you did not pre-order and you think you need one of these 38-2s to add to your collection, contact your dealer today. And we've done a great run on these. So go ahead and, like I said, contact your dealer. Somebody was asking for L&N earlier. Got 2 different versions of the L&N in this run. We did a combination of 3 different road numbers. And always the popular, the MKT. So again, GP38-2s, these are in our Genesis line. They're available in both DC and DCC with Tsunami 2 sound. These will look great on your railroad. And hey, if you're, you've got some extra hobby money from the holidays, well, here's a great way to spend that hobby loot. All right, with that being said, I'm going to take 1, maybe 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it a night, let you guys get back to some workshop time, model railroad layout time, whatever you guys are doing. Let's see what else we've got. Steve Hamilton says, generic yard slugs. I've also sent an email on this to Athearn. Something Roundhouse. It doesn't have to be road specific, so all variations don't have to be tooled. Good suggestion. And if you have sent that email to us, we appreciate it. Our guys have read that. I think in the future, you'll be pretty happy with what they come up with. Good question, Brad. But in the old days, stuff was pretty generic and it would give you a starting point. So while that is a true comment, also too, not everybody is going to be as prototypically minded as you are. That's the great thing about model railroading is we can have um, a little bit of the rule number one engaged into our model railroading. We can make it super prototype specific, or we can have a little bit of proto Lance freedom, if you will. While I'm looking for that last question, don't forget this Friday at 3:30, that is Central Standard Time, we'll be coming out with the January 2023 announcements. And it's hard to believe that we're already at this point. We're going to be talking January 2023 new announcements. We've got new locomotives. We got some new projects. 2023 is looking to be an absolutely phenomenal year. We've got a lot of stuff that we've been working on. And I'm really excited about sharing that with you. And I'm going to be able to do that a little bit coming up this Friday at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So watch for your Facebook feed, watch the YouTube notifications for that video to come out at 3:30 this Friday, the 30th. While you're at YouTube, if you haven't done so already, kindly ask you to go over to our YouTube channel and like us and subscribe to us. Once you've subscribed, hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified of other videos that drop in on a weekly basis. We'd love to have you on board. And we want to thank all of you that have joined us in the last few months. We really appreciate your support. Okay, let's see what I'm going to leave with the question of the day. Anything that you're looking for an ETA, we're trying to keep that on our website. It's pretty close. Keep in mind that the ETA is a little bit fluid right now with everything that's going on, but we try to keep a pretty good ETA on most of our projects. All right. Well, it looks like a lot of you guys are ready to get back to it. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining me on Train Tuesday tonight. And thank you for joining me for this past year in 2022. 2023 is looking to be another great year for Athearn and hopefully for you as well. So until I see you on Friday at 3:30 Central Standard Time, be happy, be safe, be healthy, and above all, high greens. Good night, everyone.